A huge Jets move is incoming following what has been an absolutely fantastic season so far for not only the Jets, but their defensive core, including Dylan Samberg. Some new reports have started to drop, revealing what his future is going to be in Winnipeg. We're going to break that down and discuss what this means going forward, as there are some serious implications behind this. But before we get into all that, quick reminder, if you're part of the 70 or so percent who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jets content. And if you're over here on Jets Digest, we're getting on the road and getting close to 1,000 subscribers over on Hattrick HQ. Make sure to hit the subscribe button as well. But there's a lot to go over today. We've obviously been talking about a lot of different things surrounding the Winnipeg Jets lately. Most importantly, the trade market, as the Jets are gearing towards a very busy deadline, as they're the first team in the NHL, and they continue to do that. However, some new reports have dropped surrounding the one player that we've talked about a lot on this channel, both Jets Digest and Hattrick HQ, and that is Dylan Samberg. And you can see this screenshot here, folks. Dylan Samberg deserves big credit and respect. The most improved defenseman this season. Samberg is playing first-line minutes at 5-on-5. He has been excellent in one of the toughest roles among all defensemen. The big contract is coming, and of course, keep this way, Dylan. I mean, it's a very interesting point because at this point, coming into this season, we knew Dylan Samberg had a great year last year, but the big question mark was, would he be able to sustain that and even perhaps be better? And everything he showed this season, from even going down in his injury and how much worse the team was in his absence, points to his impact on this team.
Like you just said, was he going to be able to take that next step? And I think that he has, right? I've said it all season long, and every time we mention Dylan Samberg, I'm going to say it. He's the glue guy, right? And not necessarily the glue guy and what people think, is normally a glue guy in the dressing room, talking and all this stuff and keeping things light, even if they're a fourth liner or something like that. He literally just makes this team so much better, and the defense core more specifically when he's on the ice. And I know he plays second line minutes. This says first line minutes, but he is playing, first line caliber minutes 5-on-5. But, on the second pairing there with Neil Pionk, he's really been able to allow Neil Pionk to activate a lot this year, right? And do his thing, pick up a lot of points, especially early in the season. So they desperately needed him back from injury. And as soon as they got him back, it's almost like they started winning again all of a sudden, right? Because they had that slump kind of through the end of November, early December, and all of a sudden they're back on track with him back in the lineup. So the payday is on the way. Is it going to be as much as, what was projected out there recently? I'm not so sure, but he is still going to make, a little bit more than he is now. So that's going to affect, the Jets' plans going forward. But he has been unbelievable this season.
Probably one of the most important Jets players this season, alongside, of course, there's a lot of them to go over, but you can see this here when you look at some of his advanced analytics. His peripherals are off the chart. He's actually been very good offensively this season, and you look at that cap hit, it's one of the best contracts in the NHL at $1.4 million through 1 year. He's put up 12 points in 34 games. Again, he missed a handful of games, a dozen or so games due to injury. So, it's at the point now where this team clearly needs to extend him in this offseason. You do not want him to walk away. Especially given how important, like you mentioned, he is not only Neil Pionk, but just the team in general. And even in front of Connor Hellebuyck, he obviously helps a lot there. And you see this here from, speaking of Connor Hellebuyck, another Connor. He says the Winnipeg Jets are 28-5-1 in games that Samberg has fully played this season. That's a 137-point pace. Samberg and Vilardi's next contract, one of the 8 thoughts that I wrote about in my latest piece for the Illegal Curve. That's an insane stat here. 28-5-1 is not only an incredible record, but it's directly correlated to Dylan Samberg. Now, obviously, the rest of the team has to play well, Connor, all these different things. Like, it's not just because of Dylan Samberg, but his impact defensively, especially when you're having a bit more of an offensive-minded defenseman in Neil Pionk alongside you. He has been absolutely fantastic, and it's translating now. And the question mark is for Mike McIntyre. I wonder what long-term extensions for Gabe Vilardi and Dylan Samberg will look like. Both are showing their incredible worth to the Jets this season, no doubt. So, Gabe Vilardi's another guy. You obviously got him in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. His extension's coming up. It's going to be some big decisions for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, they got a lot of money that's going to be coming out this summer. And even Nikolai Ehlers, too. They have a lot of contracts to get done this summer, but we know what we have in Nikolai Ehlers, right? But when you look at these two guys, Dylan Samberg having a career year, and usually, Gabe Vilardi having a career year, I should say. Dylan Samberg also having a great season. But, usually when guys come into contract years, they will have seasons like this, right? So maybe the numbers are a little bit inflated. And as we move forward, when they sign their extensions, maybe they won't have the best seasons or seasons that even touch this. But still, great players. And Vilardi too. We're touching on Samberg majority of this video, but Gabe Vilardi is having a career year. Like, he already smashed his career highs, right? And we're not even done the season yet. We're not even close. So he's having a fantastic season. And And talking about Dylan Samberg and those stats, I mean, it's unbelievable. They've only lost 6 times this season with him in the lineup, right? And a lot of the losses that the Jets have this season came when he was injured. So he's been a big piece of this team. And we're always talking about, the Jets need another center heading into the playoffs, right? The trade deadline. Maybe they need another depth defenseman. And I've been saying, this guy could come in, he could play top 4 minutes, but do you want to replace that dynamic, right? I'm not so sure. Maybe they are looking at more of a depth option on the 5 or 6 spot there on the defense core. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But Dylan Sandberg's been, and not just him, Gabe Vilardi, a couple other guys as well, but they've been a huge part of why the Jets have found success this season. They had a great season last year, but this year, I mean, unbelievable, and especially guys like Dylan Sandberg.
Yeah, looking at some of the other things here, you can see this from the Scotia Stat NHL contract projections. Dylan Samberg is currently projected to get a 3-year contract at roughly $3.6 million AAV, so that's over double, almost triple what he's currently making.
Yeah.
If Winnipeg resigns him, I think this projection will be low for him on both term and AAV, especially if the Jets make a deep playoff push. So it's yeah, I mean, he might end up getting more than that. You could see him making $4 million, maybe around 3.5. Maybe he'll do the Jets a favor for giving him a chance there. And you look at his projected cap hit. I mean, some comparables. You have Jake Wallman, of course, Timothy Liljegren. It's very interesting with defensemen. I mean, at the moment, you look at the left side of the projection, between 3 to 5% of the cap hit, and that's where these contracts are going to start to go now, especially because he's only 26 years old. So in theory, he should only get better. Whether or not his stats are inflated because of a career year is still up in the air. But some of the comparables there on the right bode pretty well here for Dylan Samberg.
Definitely do. And I mean, when you look at all of them, this is the other thing I wanted to bring up. With the comparables, I feel like he's the best player on that list,
Yeah.
right? Like if you add him to that list, he's definitely the best player on that list. So is he going to get in and around that? Yeah, probably. But I'm thinking closer to 4 million. But a lot of people were talking this season about $5 million even, right? So I think $4 million is fair for the player. If he signs somewhere between 3.5 and 4, I think that's a great deal for the Jets for what he brings to the lineup and the fact that he continues to get better year in, year out. But again, the most probable contract is somewhere in that 3.5 to $4 million range, I think. But shout out to this account as well on Twitter or X for these projected cap hits. Useful tool. But I think that, yeah, Dylan Samberg, I mean, he's going to get paid this season. He's going to get a raise. The fact that he only makes like less than $2 million right now is insane for what he brings to the team. So probably going to get a raise in that way. Is it going to be over 4 million? I don't think so. But again, the market's changing. The salary cap is going up, right? The next couple of years, 10 million almost every offseason. So could get very interesting in that way. Certain players are going to be like, hey, I want a certain percent now, but we'll see what he signs for. But he's been a big part of this team.
Yeah, let us know what your thoughts are. One quick note before we wrap up regarding Ville Heinola. He's been scratched 11 out of the Jets' last 13 games played, and uncomfortable as it may be, it's time for Winnipeg to wave their white flag on their 2019 first-round pick and trade him. We'll have videos covering that as well, as I believe he's the only, or one of the only, current NHL Finnish players who didn't make the Four Nations Cup roster. So a lot of different things going on with that. And also let us know down below, would you extend Dylan Samberg at, let's say, $5 million? And also, do you want to see Gabe Vilardi extended? Thank you guys for watching. See you guys later. Cheers.